Hello, everybody. Welcome to Zone Defense. We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and smash that subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. Also, let us know down in the comments who you think will make the playoffs in the muddled NFL playoff picture. Today, we will be doing our Week 15 NFL game picks, and for the first time since Week 4, all three of us are on the show. So, how's it going, guys?
What's going on, Drew? It's nice to be back. I mean, you fought through the injury bug last week, but we're back in business this week with our friend Roman here.
Yep, it's good to be back here with you guys. Also first week of the fantasy playoffs as well. So congratulations if you
go.
guys made your leagues. All three of us are in the playoffs, so you know we know what we're talking about. But anyways, we'll go into the news and notes. Very important injuries to talk about. As I mentioned, we are going into the fantasy playoffs. Two quarterbacks to note. Lamar Jackson left last week's game versus the Browns with an ankle injury. He's questionable. I doubt he plays personally, but we'll have to see. Tyler Huntley would start, obviously, if Jackson was out. Another quarterback, Josh Allen, he was seen in a walking boot after last week's loss in Tampa. He has a foot injury and he was limited in practice, but he's on track to play. So don't have to worry about him this week. Another wide receiver injury. Terry McLaurin had a concussion last week, was out for most of the game, didn't really see any work. He's questionable to play. D-Hop, this was brutal. This was announced yesterday as we're recording. He is out for the season. He's getting knee surgery, so a very brutal loss for the Cardinals, who took a bad loss Monday night against the Rams. And then two running backs, Eckler, he's playing tonight as we're recording on Thursday night versus the Chiefs. He won't have his usual workload due to his ankle injury, but he should play. Obviously, you kind of have to start him anyways just because he's a star, and he has the potential to go off, but know that you're not getting the usual production out of him in your lineup. Another running back, Kareem Hunt, ankle injury. He's doubtful to play. The Browns have been kind of going through a lot of injuries and COVID issues, so at least you have Nick Chubb in the backfield, so there's really nothing to worry about for the Browns at least. And then a defensive injury that I had to include here, Jerry Jacobs, cornerback for the Lions. He's been one of the Lions' only bright spots of the season, one of our best corners, but he has an ACL injury and he is out for the season. So a brutal loss for the Lions defense, but it really makes no difference whatsoever, but I wanted to include him anyways. Next, we go into some benching news. Tyrod Taylor benched for Davis Mills the rest of the season, so we will see Mills finish out the year. Obviously, that they have a winnable game this week against the Jags. We'll talk about that later, but a brutal move for Tyrod because he started the year out pretty decently, and then injuries plagued him again like last year. So it seems like every year he's getting replaced by some rookie, and then this year is no different. And then Cam Newton, he was benched again during the game last week for PJ Walker. So obviously he's going through a lot right now. I think he will play, but we'll have to see. Next, a huge COVID outbreak in the league with the new variants coming around. There's been 100 players that tested positive in the last couple of days. A few teams also had to go on like extensive lockdown procedures. So the NFL and the NFLPA are working on new protocols as we speak. So hopefully that will mitigate some of the issues. But a lot of big name players tested positive. Baker Mayfield, Rashawn Slater, who's playing tonight. A lot of people tested positive for COVID, and they'll put their week 15 availability in jeopardy. So definitely look into that too if you have any players in your lineup that tested positive. I think Odell is also one of those players who played on Monday night and the day after he tested positive. So definitely something to worry about as we move forward into these last few weeks, just making sure we get all the games in. And then lastly, news today as we're recording, I think this broke at midnight earlier today. Jaguars fire head coach Urban Meyer. And you can see if you're watching on YouTube, shocker in parentheses. Drew and I called it from the beginning. Chris was a little higher on him than we were. But I mean, with a terrible record and some drama along the way, this is only inevitable. So Darrell Bevell, former Lions offensive coordinator, will be the interim once again in Jacksonville. I personally think that's a good move. I think the juice will be brought back. I think they'll play hard for him like the Lions did last year. And then moving forward, I think some good coaching candidates to replace him would be Jim Caldwell, who has credibility, who has a resume, who has experience. I think you also want to talk about Joe Brady, who was fired from the Panthers. I think that's a little bit more of a risky move, but at least you're bringing an offensive guru, the next up-and-coming head coach potentially in Joe Brady. I also include Byron Leftwich as my last candidate, a former Jaguars quarterback himself. I think he's getting some looks too. So Byron Leftwich, I think, would be a good fit there too, and even Todd Bowles. I think both of them have done a good job as coordinators, but I think they could get a second chance, or for Bowles at least a second chance as a head coach. But a new NFL rule, at least, what the teams can talk to coaches during the last 2 weeks of the season. Normally, it was until after the Super Bowl. This year, teams can get a head start on that process, but Jags will definitely be looking into it as their past head coaches has not been good with Gus Bradley, Doug Marrone, and now Urban Meyer. So hopefully they get a good head coach and someone that can help Trevor Lawrence's development. But overall, those were the news and notes. Drew, Chris, I'll pass it to you. What do you think of some of these notes from today?
Yeah, I really only want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Urban Meyer getting fired. Obviously, it was a move that needed to be made. I called it from the beginning, saying that he was going to be a disaster. No, honestly, I'm disappointed it didn't work out. I forgot how bad of a person Urban Meyer is. To be honest, he's just a really, really bad guy. Uh, it really didn't work. I thought maybe he would bring some of maybe him bringing some of those college roots. He was very successful at Ohio State. I thought maybe some of that would translate to the league, getting Trevor Lawrence. I figured it would just be, it just seemed like a fit to me. And it really wasn't, obviously. So it shows you how little I know about actual football and how you should take my advice very with a grain of salt. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Roman, I called it early on. You can see, look at the guy's track record. Um, Florida, Ohio State, now Jacksonville. Whenever things start to go wrong, Urban pouts and he either does something stupid, fakes an illness, or all of the above. It's not too shocking here. It's surprising, I would say, that it happened this soon. I figured he'd at least get through one season, but the fact that he didn't even get to like week 15 is pretty surprising. But and also, didn't he get hired in like February? So he only had the job for like 10 months. It's crazy to think, not even a full calendar year. It's wild, and I am kind of disappointed because I feel like even though he's a bad person, he has a pure personality. So it would have been kind of cool, I guess, if he would have at least done something. But I mean, Trevor Lawrence hasn't really developed at all. There's the James Robinson drama and stuff. The team's in shambles, and they're gonna need someone to come in and really figure it out, fix it. I don't know. I like the Joe Brady thing. That'd be kind of cool because he was
I did
obviously really
too.
good with Joe Burrow and LSU. So that'd be cool if he could unlock Trevor Lawrence some more. And I also think something we're also forgetting is they're hopefully going to have Travis Etienne back next year, also, who was a pretty good running back. They're going to have another high draft pick this year, hopefully. So maybe get some more guys, and maybe they could be a decent team because they haven't looked. They've had some flashes of decency this year, but I think ultimately it came down to coaching. Coaching wasn't good, so if they improve the coaching, I think they have some interesting pieces on the team that they could be at least somewhat decent next year. But I feel like we've been saying that for about the Jaguars forever, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I have not really much to add there. Let's say we jump into the pick'em, fellas.
Okay, so let's start off, and we're traveling out to Los Angeles to see the Chargers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. These are both teams that are battling for that AFC West crown. It could really come down to who wins this game tonight. So it's a huge game. I feel like Thursday night games, they're pretty up and down. Sometimes they're awful, sometimes they're good. I feel like we've had some stinkers recently. Maybe my memory's not serving correctly, but I feel like we've had some stinkers. This one's going to be really good, I think. Like I said, if the Chiefs win, they're probably going to win the division. If the Chargers win, they're also have a really good shot at winning the division. So a lot riding on here. Maybe the biggest game in the history of that new Los Angeles stadium, and maybe the biggest game in Chargers history in a very long time. So, Chris, you can start us off. Who do you like between the Chiefs and the Chargers?
Yeah, this is going to be a really good game. Honestly, probably the best Thursday night game on the slate all season. And I'm going to go. I mean, this is kind of boring, but I am going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I
Boo.
think they are coming in a little bit more hot. The Chargers are playing some good football right now, too. This is definitely going to be a really, really close game. But I like that Chiefs defense. I think they've been playing extremely well over the last 6 or 7 weeks throughout this winning streak. And the offense looked all right last week. I mean, they got a lot of help, an early pick six in the game, a lot of other really good defensive plays. Just the Raiders, which I'll discuss in the next game, the Raiders just stink in general. So, I mean, you can't take that into this game, but you can take the fact that their defense has been playing extremely well and just continues to give up very little points. I actually think their defense is going to give up some points for sure in this game. but I also think their offense is going to play well too. So I think this is going to be a relatively high scoring game. Not anything crazy, but I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game as well. The matchup that's pretty much the most important to me, at least, is going to see seeing that Los Angeles offense against Kansas City defense. Both are missing some key players on both sides of the ball. Kansas City, they'll be out Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, I think a few others, and obviously with the Eckler injury, that should see some really interesting usage of him and see how they use him in the backfield. Obviously, they have Joshua Kelly in that backfield, Justin Jackson, and Larry Roundtree. So we'll see how they mix and match some of those running backs. And then Rashawn Slater, as I mentioned, he has COVID, so he probably won't play tonight. Just for the same reasons you mentioned, Chris, I'll also be taking Kansas City. However, I do think it'll be a very high scoring game, and then I do think whoever wins this game will also win that division as well.
I think you guys already know where I'm going. I'm going Chargers, baby. Charge up, LA. Yes. I don't know because I don't like Kansas City, but I think all the reasons that you guys outlined are very factual and very true. Kansas City is coming a little bit hotter, even though the Chargers did have a nice win last week, but the Chiefs obviously had a slightly nicer win against the Raiders, just absolutely destroying them. I believe it was the worst loss in Raiders franchise history, also. So. They are coming with a lot of momentum. They've shut up a lot of the haters that a lot of the doubts that we had earlier on in the season. But I don't know this Chargers team. I like them. I know last year, remember there was that awesome game when they played in LA. That was I think that was Herbert's first game, if I remember correctly. And
Mhm.
under the lights, the Chargers uniforms look awesome. I know that literally does nothing for this analysis, but I don't know. I think Justin Herbert with his flow, and he's just going to win, and it's going to be awesome, and they're going to win the division. So, yes, give me the Chargers. All right, so now we'll get into the Raiders Browns matchup. I can start us off here because it's interesting because, as you said, Chris, the Raiders are awful, and they just had a terrible loss last week. With the Browns, as Roman you mentioned, Baker Mayfield's out with COVID. They got a lot of injuries and everything like that. But Case Keenum is not an awful quarterback. He's very serviceable. I forgot who they played. I think it might have been Denver earlier on in the season when Baker was hurt and Cleveland was able to beat Denver. And Denver's obviously a pretty solid average team. I think they're better than the Raiders. So I
Not
think
saying much.
I know, but I think using that kind of as a basis, I think the Browns are going to be healthy enough to at least get past the Raiders. Even though I do think it's going to be a close game, the Raiders are healthier, but at the same time, I don't think they're better than the Browns. And I think Keenum will be able to do enough. I think Nick Chubb's just going to feast, and they're going to be able to find a way to win the game. But how about Roman? Who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, for the Raiders, I'll say this. Their loss looked a lot worse last week just because of the compounding turnovers they had. I think they had like what, three in the first half. So I think if
Yeah,
they clean it up and don't turn it over, they can play a good game of football. I don't think they're bad by any means. I think they've been killed by some injuries recently. But for the Browns, I think just having Chubb is going to be the key factor. They can run all over that Raiders defense. And even if they didn't have Chubb, I think Dearness Johnson would do just as good of a job. This game and the next game we'll talk about are actually on Saturday, so that's a little change of pace from what we've been normally talking about. But I'm also going to go with the Browns as well.
yeah. I mean, I could take the opportunity to steal a game here, but I will actually be at this game. Unfortunate that we're not going to get to see the full Cleveland roster out there, but honestly, I think their third stringers could beat the Raiders. I just have no faith in that team right now. I think they suck. I think Derek Carr without these weapons has not looked the same. They fumbled the ball like 12 times last game. There's just there's not a lot to like about this. Oh, and not even to mention their defense might be the worst in the league right now. I know they started off hot early in the season. They have been so absolutely horrendous the last 5 or 6 weeks. Like they just give hemorrhage points. However you want to beat them, you can beat them. Honestly, is Baker to Case Keenum even really a downgrade? I'm not sure, man. I mean, Keenum looked good against a tough Broncos defense on Thursday night. And I remember Dearness Johnson ran all over that defense as well. It's going to be the Nick Chubb show again. The problem is they have their entire offensive line out, but honestly, it doesn't matter because this Raiders team stinks. Their defense sucks, and they suck in general, and they're going to lose.
Yeah, there we go. I'm happy that you guys didn't pick the Raiders. I was worried when I started this one off that somebody was going to go Raiders, and it might have been a good opportunity to pick up a game. But hey, we all went Browns because the Raiders suck. Now we're going out to Indianapolis to see the Colts and the Patriots. The Patriots, I mean, who would have thought that they're currently the first seed in the AFC? I mean, that's pretty insane. But they got a good Colts team here. They started off pretty slow, but the Colts have come up strong here. And I know they're currently in a wild card spot, and they're probably not going to win the division, but it's still kind of in the picture. Maybe if some things go their way, but probably not. They're probably going to stay seeking to a wild card spot. So this is another really, really good matchup, I think. And Roman, who do you like between these two teams?
Yeah, I think the Colts are just sitting outside the playoff picture if they're not already inside. So I think they do have a very good chance of making the playoffs if they keep rolling. Um, they're coming off a bye week, of course, and the Patriots, they've also won like what 7, 8 in a row. So I think they're as hot as they could be. Um, However, I'm gonna be a little bold and I'm gonna pick the Colts in this game. I think their defense can step up because Mac Jones he hasn't been doing a whole lot lately. They don't win games because of him. It's more so just the defense. So I think Jonathan Taylor, Carson Wentz can do enough to overcome that defense. And even if they take away some of their best guys, I think the Indianapolis Colts defense can also step up as well. So I'm taking my shot here. I'm going to Indianapolis at home in a close one.
Yeah, I think we both know where me and Drew are going here. I'm going with the New England Patriots. We were both in on this kind of early. I don't know. I really like this Patriots team. Coming off the bye, they're gonna be a little healthier. They looked unbelievably good against that. We didn't really get to talk about it much because, like I said, they were on bye. They looked really good against Buffalo. Mac Jones is basically the GOAT with this 3 fantastic passes he had in the game. But in all seriousness, they were able to run all over a tough Buffalo defense. Indianapolis is also a tough front up, but they are a weak secondary, so I expect we're going to see more than 3 passes from Mac Jones in this one. But I also expect them to, regardless of Indianapolis's strong front seven, I expect them to be able to run the ball. Uh, and I think they'll do a decent job, limiting Jonathan Taylor. You're not stopping him. I'm sure he'll probably score 4 touchdowns because I said this and probably run for like 700 yards. But New England, I would say, is one of the better teams that are equipped to stop the run, and I think they will do a decent job bottling him up. But so you can see some success through the passing game, and that's I think how the Colts could win this one. I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm looking forward to watching this one. But give me my New England Patriots.
Yeah, I'm also going with the Patriots, like you alluded to, Chris. I think it's going to be a really, really good game for all the reasons you guys already mentioned. The Colts are a very solid team. I think their record doesn't really do them justice. I think they're pretty solid. But the Patriots are also really solid. I mean, I'm still just in shock at how good this team is, especially how they started the season. Is they've won like 7, 8 in a row, and they started like 1-4, I think. So it's just insane to think that they're. It's just funny because like the Bills were like, oh, this is our division, and now the Patriots are just coming right back and being like, haha, screw you. So it's fun to watch, and I think it's going to be a really good game, and I think the Patriots are going to win it. And I mean, they might get a bye, guys. It's pretty nuts. It's
Crazy,
very,
bro.
very cool to see. So. Now we'll hop into Arizona, Detroit. I don't really know if I even really need to give any kind of lead up to this game. I'll just throw it over to you, Chris. Who do you like?
Uh, there's a shot I will actually be at this game as well. Somehow I may make the trip back to Detroit and watch my Cardinals play, as you can see.
My
Um,
what?
and I'll be wearing my Kyler Murray jersey if I do go to this game. So, but yeah, the Cardinals are going to win this game very easily. No Hopkins, so that is the Lions, maybe they'll compete. You never know. But there's also no opportunity for Jeff Okuda to get his second career interception against Hopkins, who apparently he can clamp up. But you know, Arizona is just a way better team. Detroit stinks. Probably no Swift, unfortunately, and no shot that they win this game.
I think there's a decent chance Swift plays. I think Hawkinson will also play as well, both guys that we didn't have last week. And for the Cardinals, you obviously mentioned D Hop, and Connor's also dealing with an ankle injury himself. That he got on the last few plays of the game last week. So it could be close. It seems like Detroit plays Arizona almost every year. I will mention that the Lions are 3-0-1 in their last 4 meetings. So whether are we Kyler Murray's kryptonite? I don't know. But I think the Cardinals will win. However, you never know what you're going to get with the Lions. They could compete and fight hard, and they could fall flat. Either one, I think, is very possible this week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be much of a surprise with who I'm going with here. It's the Cardinals. Yes, I know we have had some luck against them in the past, but I don't think that's going to happen this time. With all the Lions recovering from all their illnesses and everything. Also, them just not being a great team. And even though the Cardinals do have some injuries, I think this is the perfect game that they can kind of just recover and get an easy win, especially after their loss last week. Yes, so I think it's gonna be a solid game, and they kind of need it though because the division's still kind of up for grabs there with the Rams, especially with their win last week, and they're right behind them. They're only a game back, so but this should be an easy win for the Cardinals. Now we'll hop into Carolina Buffalo. Carolina is a team that I know I was relatively high on entering the season, and they started off pretty good, but they've kind of just been falling apart recently. And then Buffalo has also been falling apart as well. Just some tough losses in recent weeks, but they did come back against Tampa Bay last week, which was nice to see. So hopefully they can maybe use some of that momentum they found in the second half and carry it over into this game against Carolina. I feel like there's a clear-cut favorite in here. And I think I'm going first here, so I can just say who I think is going to win, and it's going to be Buffalo for all the reasons I just said. Even though they are coming in maybe without the most momentum, they haven't been as great as we thought they were going to be. I know we thought they were going to be Super Bowl contenders. They haven't looked like that so far, but they did show some signs of life last week against Tampa Bay, and Carolina's just not a good football team. But this is a really, really must-win game for Buffalo because they're right now I think they're the 7th or 6th seed in the playoffs, and if they lose, I mean they'll be 500, and they'll also be it's a very real possibility they will make the playoffs if they lose this easy game against Carolina. So hopefully they get the win. And Roman, I see you already picked Buffalo as well.
Yeah, but I agree with you with your last statements. I think Buffalo could be very at risk of missing the playoffs, especially with Miami playing some good football as of late. There could definitely be a possibility where Buffalo doesn't make it, and it's very upsetting because we thought they would be an obvious winner of the division, but obviously with New England and they're getting all their players back and Mac Jones playing some good football, I mean, they've taken the league by storm. So Buffalo is definitely at risk, and they definitely have to win a game like this where Carolina has nothing really, not much going for them right now, although they're at the bottom of the playoff hunt in the NFC. I think Buffalo should win and definitely needs this game to keep their hopes alive in the playoffs.
Yeah, Roman, I know you said something about a clear AFC East favorite, and that is the New England Patriots. That's what we're talking about. This is the clear division winner. I'm just kidding. I thought New England would be decent this season. I'm not going to lie, but I did not think they would be better than the Bills already, and that is just ridiculous, man. That just shows how good Bill Belichick is and how awesome of a job he has done. And hey, they did have a lot of players on the COVID list. I know we're not talking about New England anymore, but they had a ton of players that opted out of the season last year due to COVID on their defense, and I think that's been a big thing. Not something people are talking about a lot. They've got a lot of those guys back this year, and I think that's made a major impact. But yeah, I think this is a get right game for Buffalo. Carolina has a good defense, so this isn't some pushover team, and I think that's actually a good test for Josh Allen and this offense. They looked good last week against Tampa Bay. While I don't think Carolina is a good team, like I said, their defense being good, I think will give Buffalo an opportunity to take something out of this game. And I think they'll do a good job on offense, and I think their defense obviously is going to shut down Carolina. I expect a big win here in Buffalo.
Yeah, and I don't want to go back to the Patriots again, but I do like that team a lot. Matthew Judon, he's just been a beast too. So, and he wasn't even on their team last year either. So, it's going to be a really fun race there in the AFC East down the stretch. And speaking of the AFC East, we have a division matchup here between the Jets and the Dolphins. The Jets suck. I don't really think I need to talk about them anymore. And the Dolphins, we wrote them off for dead weeks ago, and now they're 6-7 within. I mean, they're very, very much in the wild card playoff picture. I think they have a decent schedule down the stretch also. So if they take care of business here against New York, Tua's looked really, really good. I think if you're a Miami fan, you got to be happy that they decided to keep Tua and not trade for Deshaun. At least I think Tua looks like he could be the real deal as long as he stays healthy. But yeah, I think Miami, I like that team a lot. Hopefully they get Myles Gaskin. I know he had COVID during the bye last week. So hopefully he's able to suit up for them on Sunday. And then same also Jalen Waddle too. I think he's having a very underrated rookie season. He's been really, really awesome. So Roman, you can start us off here. Who do you like between the Jets and the Finns?
Well, you mentioned Jalen Waddle, but actually just now as we were recording, he was put on the COVID list, so it does not look like he's going to play this week. So that's a big loss for Miami.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll make it too much of a difference. Miami, I think they've been playing some great football, as I already mentioned, but their schedule is a little tough down the stretch. Obviously, they have the Jets this week, and then they play the Saints, who can go either way. The Titans, who have played some decent football this year, and then they finish it with the Patriots. So not the hardest, not the easiest of schedules down the stretch. So they want to make the playoffs. They'll truly run the gauntlet here. But I think even without Waddle, I think they can definitely win this game. Their defense has been playing better than normal from the first half of the season, so I'm gonna go with them this week. But the Jets, it's tough for them. They don't look fairly fantastic. Zach Wilson is playing better than the first half, but still making some costly mistakes. So I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here.
Let's be real here. Zach Wilson's going to be a bust, man. This guy can't throw the football. I mean, he misses so many routine pass. I get so frustrated watching the Jets offense, even though I have no like fantasy implications. I would never start a Jets player on my fantasy teams, besides maybe like Elijah Moore, but he's out.
Elijah
So it doesn't
Moore.
matter. Yeah, he's out. But yeah, Zach Wilson, he honestly looks like he's just outmatched out there. I don't know what it is. He has a lot of arm talent. There's reasons why I wasn't in on him. I could see this coming. I don't know what it was. I wasn't super in on him. He was my QB5 of the class. Not to boost myself too much there, because I also didn't think Urban Meyer was the best hire of the offseason. So don't say this as I'm boosting, but there were some accuracy concerns. I think, like I said, has all the arm talent in the world, but he's just not hitting these easy throws, and that's the kind of throws you have to be able to make, and it's so frustrating watching a quarterback that can't make them all the time. And that's kind of why Baker Mayfield's been getting criticized, because he just misses these easy throws all the time. Taking what the defense is giving him, making a smart read, a better read than he was earlier in the season, but just not being able to make these easy throws. So I'm worried about Zach Wilson very much, and I'm also not worried about Miami's chances. I think Jalen Waddle is a perfect game for him to, take off, get a second bye week right after a bye week that they just had for the final stretch. He should probably be back next week. And honestly, I don't want to spoil it, but I'm going to be picking Miami most likely in the next three matchups, including this one. I think they can. Besides the Patriots team, I think they can run the table here, and then that'll get them sneak into the playoffs as the 6 or 7 seed. So, I'm rooting for Miami here. I really like how two is played.
Yeah, they just have to figure out their COVID situation. I don't think it's going to impact them too much against the Jets here, but Waddle and Gaskin have both had pretty good seasons, and they're pretty important parts of that offense, obviously. So they're going to need those guys back. But hey, shout out to Devontae Parker, probably going to have a big week now. Unfortunately, I think Jason has him, so I'm going to be playing him on our matchup. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so now we've got Washington and Philadelphia. And then this is a pretty big shocker, guys, but Washington is currently the 7th seed in the NFC playoff picture. I don't know how that happened because they sucked to start the year. Taylor Heineke did not look great, and now they're in a playoff spot. And the Eagles are also right there. This very well could be a battle for that 6th spot. So both teams, I don't think, are great. I know Chris was talking about Jalen Hurts earlier. However, I do think that this is a game that, even though both teams are pretty average, they have a lot of playoff implications. This is what adding that 7th playoff spot kind of did for the NFLs. There's a lot more games that have a lot more playoff implications that otherwise wouldn't have. So, I feel like these two teams are pretty similar. They're kind of just but they could make the playoffs. So, Chris, who do you like between the Eagles and the football team?
Oh man, it's actually a good game. I think this is going to be a tough fight. Washington is dealing with some major injuries right now, though. Taylor Heineke, if I'm not mistaken, is injured. I'm not 100
I
percent
think
sure on
I
that.
think he's
I think
on
he's
track to
banged up.
play.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, that's what I thought too. I know he's a little banged up. I assume he'll probably be out there, but he's gonna be without his number one receiver Terry McLaurin and his top tight end Logan Thomas, who's out for the season. I would say he's likely going to be without Terry, but even with that Jalen Hurts high ankle sprain that I mentioned earlier, I don't even think I mentioned it on the episode. I think we were just talking about it before the episode, but I'm a little worried about him in fantasy because most of his value comes from running. So I'm glad I have the buy where I do have him, so that I can kind of see what he's going to be like and see if he's healthy. Minshew may even start, we'll have to see. But I'm going to go Philly. I think they've been playing some good ball lately. Washington looked. I know they kind of kept it close with Dallas. Dallas really tried to blow that game, but man, I just really have not. I did not like how Washington played last week. I watched that game. It should not have been remotely close. Dallas should have honestly beat them by 30. Heineke looked awful. I mean that's they just drafted a quarterback. That's what they did based on that game because he looked so bad. And just I don't know. He's definitely not the answer here. And Philly's gonna win this one at home.
Yeah, for Washington, this is a big game. I think losing last week versus Dallas already kind of took them out of their chances for winning the division, where it was getting a little close, but Dallas has also been pulling away. And for Washington, the rest of their games, starting from last week, they're all division games. So it's pretty unique in terms of that schedule, how all their games from here on out are division games. So they could use that to their advantage to get easy wins because the division is not looking very good between Philly and the Giants, who most of the games are left, and then one versus Dallas as well. But also, like you mentioned, Chris, Philadelphia has a few injuries, mostly Jalen Hurts. But even if Minshew plays, I think they'll do a pretty decent job. Coming, Philly was on their bye last week, but the week before, Minshew had a good game against the Jets, albeit it was the Jets. But Goddard also had a pretty good game too, so I think they could do exactly the same thing. Work the ground game a little bit with Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. I think Philadelphia can win this game, but I think I think Washington needs this game a little bit more, just because I think if they're the second team out of that division, it will be them.
Yeah, I'm going Philly too, for all the reasons you guys mentioned. I just think they're overall a better team, and I mean, look at Washington's wins in recent weeks. I believe they beat Dallas a couple weeks ago, but then they beat the Raiders, and they had a bye, and they've been kind of just somehow finding a way to win these games. And I think Philadelphia is just overall just a better team, with or without Hurts. Obviously, if Hurts plays, I think this is going to be an easy win for Philadelphia, especially since it's at home. However, if Minshew plays, I think they're still going to find a way to win. So give me Philadelphia, and then we'll stick in the NFC East for this next match between the Cowboys and the Giants. So the Cowboys are leading that division, and the Giants they're still technically in the playoff picture, but they're just hanging on by a thread. And I think they're not a good team. Roman already put Dallas in there. I'm also going to put Dallas. I do have some concerns with their team, namely Dak Prescott hasn't played great the last couple weeks, and Zeke's been banged up.
Oh
So
no,
that's a
he
little bit
sucks.
that's a little concerning. I know we talked earlier during the midway point of the season about how they could be Super Bowl contenders, and they haven't really looked like that, at least in the second half of the season so far. So, but Roman, anybody else have anything else they want to add about this matchup?
I
Because we already
I
put our picks in.
I will just say really quickly, Daniel Jones, his status is still up in the air. He obviously hasn't been playing the past couple of games. It's been Mike Glennon. And I think either way, I think the Giants' trajectory is just going downhill, and I think Dallas just needs this game, and I think they're just the better team overall. So there shouldn't really be much of a contest.
Yeah. I I can't remember. Maybe I just dreamt this, but I swear I saw Mike Glennon's been confirmed to start again this week, and which it doesn't. It doesn't matter. I mean, you could spot the Giants 20 points in this game, they're going to lose. Dallas's defense has been Super Bowl level contender, in my opinion. Their offense has not held up to the same thing since Dak got injured. With that calf injury, he's been absolutely terrible. And Zeke has been, I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're going to do with Zeke. To be honest, I would draft a running back in the draft and cut him. Like it's just gotten to that point. This dude has no juice, and I have him in my fantasy team. I have a bye right now. I'm hoping they just sit him for this week so he maybe gets a little healthier or something. I don't know. I don't know what I even hope for. Maybe I even hope for they just rest him the rest of the season. I don't have to worry about playing him because I know I'm going to get 7 points. It's just playing a guy that you're getting 7 points from. So. He just hasn't looked good. Pollard, I know he's injured and coming back from an injury. I think he's going to play this week. He just looks like the better player, and
That's what I was gonna say.
maybe this will be kind of Pollard. I know not he's been good all season. Maybe this will be kind of Pollard's breakout game here against the Giants if he does go. I could see that very well being in the cards.
Quick question: do you guys think Micah Parsons is Defensive Player of the Year or just the Rookie of the Year?
Yes, I think he's absolutely a defensive player of the year. He's been the best. Honestly, is it crazy to say he's been the best player in the NFL this season? I don't think it's that crazy, man. He has totally changed this defense. Yeah, well, this defense has some other talented players. This was an absolutely putrid unit last season, one of the worst in the league. Parsons is coming right away. They move him everywhere. He's a chess piece, and he has been so dynamic and he's so dominant. I absolutely love Micah Parsons, and I'm so pissed. I know we have Penei Sewell. I'm so mad we didn't draft him. I wanted him. It was another guy. I kind of quieted down a little bit towards the end of the year because I really wanted Fields, but Parsons, because that was more. I was like, man, well, how do we pass on Fields? But Parsons was absolutely the guy that I wanted, throughout the draft process, and I thought that he was just someone you could do a lot of different things. He's so explosive out there, man. I love watching him, man. I want a jersey.
Yeah, he's very good, and I think you make a good point there too, Chris. He could be the best player in the league
This year,
this year
maybe.
because there's really, I mean, we talked about it a few episodes ago too. There's really no like clear cut MVP either this year. I feel like so
In my opinion, he's in
he
the
might get some
conversation.
votes. Yeah, he might get some
Should.
votes. It's hard for defensive players to win the MVP though, but you'll definitely get some votes. It's hard for non-quarterbacks to win the MVP.
Yeah,
but
right.
okay, but now we'll hop in now to Tennessee, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been pretty inconsistent recently. They win some, they lose some. They're slowly falling out of the playoff picture. And Tennessee, despite their injuries, they've still been able to stay afloat and keep ahead of the AFC South. They're very much in play for the number 1 seed in the AFC also. Even though I think Pittsburgh could win this game, being in Pittsburgh at home, I just think Tennessee's overall a better team. It seems like they have had some duds throughout the season where they just kind of don't show up. So maybe that could happen this week because Pittsburgh's not an awful team, but I just like Tennessee more. They need this game, especially if they want to try and overthrow New England as the best team in the AFC and get that bye. So I think they're going to take care of business in Pittsburgh. But Roman, who do you like?
I'm taking Pittsburgh, actually. They came up short last week versus Minnesota, partially due to Claypool's dancing on the field in the 2-minute drill, but I think they clean that stuff up. I personally think this might be a hot take, but I think Tennessee are frauds. I think they have a good record for sure, but when they get in the playoffs, they'll probably get out round one. Um, Obviously, with Derrick Henry, they're not as explosive, and Ryan Tannehill hasn't done enough to keep them in games. I think that just made the main difference, and obviously they've had a lot of struggles at the wide receiver position with Julio and AJ Brown. So, give me Pittsburgh in here. I think Najee's going to do a good job, and that defense is going to shut down Tannehill quite easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to call the Titans frauds because they've had so many injuries this year. It's honestly, I've been impressed with the job that Vrabel's done to keep them, winning these games. But I do agree, this is not a dominant team. This is a team that I have no expectations in the playoffs for unless they get Henry, AJ Brown back to full strength. Honestly, I feel like we're falling into a trap here, Roman, because I felt the same way. I was like, man, how does Pittsburgh not win this game? I mean, I feel like they have a lot more talent on both sides of the ball, but this is a game that I mean, Tennessee's defense has been very good, honestly. They've been extremely good. We should definitely respect that they shut down Jacksonville. Um, you know, Probably led to a lot of the reason why Urban got fired because it's just another absolute, mess in what's been an absolute mess of a season. But Pittsburgh, I think last week, the first half was an absolute joke. They looked so bad against Minnesota, and then obviously, Minnesota and their really good head coach um, fell apart. To be honest, though, and maybe I'll touch up on this a little more when I get to the Minnesota game. I did have a 28-0 lead in a Madden online game against a friend yesterday and almost blew it. So it is hard when you have that big of a lead. It is really hard to sit on the ball and a couple mistakes here and there, and you could blow the game. So that was kind of how I think Pittsburgh got into the game. But also, I will be talking about the Vikings later on. But yep, give me Pittsburgh.
Okay. And just for the record too, I do agree with you guys. I do think Tennessee is very fraudulent, and I don't think when it comes playoff time, I mean, the AFC is just a mess. I think any of the 7 teams that make it could realistically make it
It'll
to the
be the
Super Bowl.
Chiefs. Don't worry. It'll be the
It'll
Chiefs.
probably be the Chiefs. You're right, which just sucks because I hate them and they're bad for football. But anyway, we'll move on to Houston, Jacksonville. Um, uh, this game sucks.
What
Let's just be
to
real.
say, really?
I mean, I know who I'm going to pick.
I do as
But I think
well.
Roman, you kind of got in the crappy matchups here, Roman. I apologize to
Uh,
start us off here, but who do you like between Houston and Jacksonville? The only 2 teams in the NFL worse than the Lions. I can easily say that.
I
that
agree.
I would agree with. These two teams, obviously the worst in the AFC. The only really thing to talk about in this game is just draft pick implications. Obviously, both of these teams are sitting at 2 and 3 with 2 wins, and the Lions are at 1 win. So the winner of this game probably won't get the first round pick, the first overall pick, which is good. Obviously, Jacksonville with the Urban Meyer situation, Darrell Bevell coming into a situation where I think the team can rally around him. We saw last year with Detroit, the Lions won a game after Patricia was fired. I think the schedule is too short of a week for them to kind of get their stuff together and ready for Houston. I think they obviously could win. I think they have better skill position players and the better quarterback, but I think I'm gonna pick Houston just because I think they're more, I guess, veteran, I guess, at the coaching position as well, and I think Davis Mills will do an all right job, and Royce Freeman, David Johnson combo in the backfield. Watch out.
Uh, yeah, I'm gonna go with Jacksonville in this one. I think they're gonna rally around barreling Daryl Bevel out there. I think he's gonna instill some. They're gonna have some fun. They're gonna play loose. Honestly, hot. I mean, I guess this is a hot take because both these teams sucks. I think Jacksonville comes out and blows them out. I don't know why. I think they're gonna come out and destroy this team. I don't think
That
that
would be
Houston's
something.
very good. I think they're gonna come out and play just a fun brand of football. kind of like the Lions did after they let go of Matt Patricia. They had Daryl Bevel come in as the guy to fill in. I
Interim.
forgot that
Yeah.
word. There you go. But yeah, give me Jacksonville.
Yeah, I completely agree, Chris. I think they're just going to come out there. I think in a way, Urban Meyer's been holding his team back. I think Bevel does exactly what he did last year in Chicago. It's a very similar situation where you have a really crap team playing a slightly less crap team, and they got a new coach, or they got an interim coach. They're ready to go, and they want to prove, hey, we're good. It was Patricia's fault. This is exactly what's gonna. It's literally the same thing. It's just a different, literally the same guy as the interim coach too. I think this could be I think Trevor Lawrence, this might be his game of the year. I think this maybe when he puts the world on notice, like, hey, I'm the number one pick, because no one's talking about him at all. I mean, you talk about Zach Wilson, Chris, being disappointing. I mean, I feel like all the talk's been around Mac Jones, and really that's it, because Fields has been kind of disappointing. Wilson's been disappointing. Lawrence has been disappointing. Who am I forgetting? Is there another guy? Am I forgetting
Trey
somebody?
Lance has not played.
Trey
So
Lance isn't playing. I didn't even completely forgot about him. So it's been the Mac Jones show, and I think this is when Trevor Lawrence is like, hey, I'm the number one overall pick. I think it's gonna be a big game for him, and just the whole team as a whole. I think they're ready to shut up Urban Meyer and show that it wasn't their fault. It was his fault, because I do think they have some talent on the roster. But
if they get James Robinson back confirmed, I think they can definitely win. And like you mentioned, as I already said, I think they have better skill position players and the better quarterback. But I think it's just too short of a week for them to kind of get their stuff together with Daryl Bevel. But I absolutely see them winning a game with him at some point during the stretch.
and they're gonna run the table here. They're gonna win 4 in a row. Um,
Good for the
they're
Lions,
gonna
I guess.
they're gonna make some people think, hey, is this a playoff team next year? And then they're not gonna be a playoff team next year. Anyway, Green Bay, Baltimore. I guarantee you guys, if they win 4 in a row, there's gonna be articles out about, hey, is this a playoff team next year? And then we'll spend the whole summer talking about that.
And I
Anyway,
guarantee they won't win 4 games in a row.
even if they go like 2-2 down the stretch, there's gonna be some talks.
No, there's not.
There is. I
They,
swear,
they
dude.
do they
Yeah,
do play the Jets next week, I think, or some along the stretch. They could definitely win 2
Oh
games.
God.
they go two
All
and
right.
two. There's gonna be
Remind
some
me to not
articles.
watch that game.
All right, so we've got Green Bay, Baltimore now. Baltimore, obviously, with the Lamar Jackson injury, is they're leading the division. They're most likely going to make the playoffs, but their long term outlook does not look super great. And Green Bay, I mean, they're a really good team. They're the best team in the NFC. It's them or Tampa Bay. I would say is the best team in the league overall. I would say they got to be the Super Bowl favorites at this point. So I know who I'm going, but Chris, it's your turn to start us off here. Who do you like between the Packers and the Ravens?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar's going to be out for this one, so my decision's kind of been made for me. I'm going to go pack go here, but Rogers on that busted foot that he keeps talking about, which I believe him. I think it's a significant injury. I just think it doesn't. This dude could play without a right arm, and he'd still somehow find a way to be a good NFL quarterback. He's honestly in my opinion, him and Tom Brady go to the same factory to get software updates and stuff like that, because both these guys are just machines. And honestly, Rodgers, I honestly, this is what I really hate the Packers, one of my least favorite teams in the league. Rodgers absolutely deserves MVP consideration, which
I
he has
agree.
not been getting. Honestly, I have not seen anybody talking about him. It's all about Tom Brady, which rightfully so, he's been great this year. I mean, Brady will probably end up winning the award. I think Rodgers is probably two right now, man. I mean, he's been great. This team's been awesome, and he's back to his usual tricks, man. And they look good going to the playoffs. They got a good defense. Honestly, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm going to say right now, I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I don't like it. I really dislike it. Actually, I hope they don't. I hope I'm wrong. But if the NFC runs through Lambeau, that's going to be a problem for these other teams, man.
Yeah, I think if Green Bay were to get the bye in the NFC, I think Rodgers would definitely be a front runner for MVP. And just talking about this matchup, I think even if they had Lamar, I would have picked the Packers anyways. I think Rodgers can absolutely slaughter that secondary of Baltimore that's absolutely decimated with injuries right now. And I think that obviously you mentioned it, Chris. The toe for Rodgers, it was a setback. He said from last week's game. So he could very well get off-season surgery. I don't think they're going to give him surgery in season if he were to miss a game, but I think he's playing some great football right now. He doesn't like that the toe is affecting him that much. And although, like you mentioned, Chris, it would hurt, I guess, to see Green Bay win a Super Bowl. I think watching Rodgers has been a little bit more enjoyable the past couple of seasons when they're like letting loose. Not really, the Lions have nothing to play for. So watching Green Bay kind of run the table a little bit and have some fun, I think it's been a little bit more enjoying to watch, and it'll be worth it if he's off the team next year.
Yeah, I mean, in a very real way, I think the MVP could be whoever gets the NFC number one seed. If the Bucks get it, it might be Brady. If the Packers get it, it's going to be Rodgers.
Rams
It has
get it,
been
Stafford, right?
no, no way. Especially he's been dog crap since October, like he is every year. But anyway, we don't need to get into Stafford slander conversation again. But yeah, I don't really have too much to add. You guys really hit all the nails on the coffin there. The Packers are a very good team, and I think I mean, it seems like something happens every year to them in the playoffs that prevents them from winning the Super Bowl. But I think this year looks very, very real with how wide open everything is. So now we've got the Bengals and the Broncos. I really like this game actually because both teams are 7-6. It really, I think, the winner of this game is going to be still very much in the playoff picture and could probably get a wild card spot. The loser of this game, it's going to be it's going to be really tough for them to overcome it. And I don't understand. Like the Broncos are good, but I don't understand how they keep winning games. I think Cincinnati's just a better team, and I'm going to go Cincinnati here. I might be crazy, and you guys might both pick Denver because I do think they have some good talent. And obviously, I wasn't here last week, but the Demaryius Thomas passing was obviously very tragic, also. So they got something to play for in that respect, also. So maybe they can use that and continue to play well. But I don't know. I think Cincinnati overall is just a better team in my opinion. So I'm going to pick them to win. But I don't know. Denver's been able to find ways to win games, so maybe they're going to be able to do it again here. They are at home, which I think is very beneficial. But I think this is going to be a good game, and there's a lot on the line for both teams.
Honestly, dude, I have been so underwhelmed with the way Cincinnati's been playing since the start of the season. I think they've been absolutely terrible the last few weeks. I mean, they haven't been able to run the ball with Joe Mixon as well as they were for a while there on their winning streak. They really looked like an absolute utter disaster against San Fran last week, and they almost ended up pulling out a victory in that, but they were unable to do that. Denver. I'm going to take Denver in this one. It's because of that running game, man. Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon looked really good last week. I mean, Williams has looked good all season. Honestly, Gordon has been good all season. I'm hoping, it honestly makes, and I really hope this doesn't happen. It makes some sense for Denver to re-sign Melvin Gordon and wait for Javante to be fully ready to take that workload. Because honestly, Gordon has looked good. He's had juice all season, man. I mean, I know everybody hates on him just because they want to see Javante get the full workload, but in all reality, Melvin Gordon deserves some of it. He's been good, man, and I think both guys are going to be Cincinnati. Honestly, their defense has not been that great lately. I mean, they've been giving up a lot of rushing yards, and honestly, they've been giving up some success through the air, which Teddy Bridgewater likely won't expose. But I think that Denver's defense is well equipped to handle Cincinnati's offense as well.
Yeah, for Denver, at least you talked about it, Gordon and Javante. I think last week was the first kind of week we saw them coexist in the same backfield. Normally, it was kind of one or the other, and the other would get the scraps of what was left. But I think last week, both very, very solid games. Also, in terms of fantasy, they both did very well. This is a tough game to pick because Cincinnati, like you mentioned, is like on 2-game losing streak. I believe I picked them the last 2 weeks to win, and they both lost. And Denver, they do have some momentum on their side. I like what they're doing. I think they're a quarterback away. Uh, this is really tough, to be honest. I'm gonna pick Cincinnati again, give them another shot. I do think they're gonna be the better team. I think they're more equipped for the playoffs, but it just depends on, like you mentioned, Chris, all you mentioned with the run game and the defense getting a lot better. And for Denver, they just need to continue what they're doing from last week because they definitely can run the table a little bit. This is a very interesting game, and I'll be looking at this one very closely.
If I can play devil's advocate, though, Denver was playing a beat up Lions team last week, and
Sure.
True, true.
the Lions are bad as is. Then they're beat up; they're even worse. So, um, but their running game was really good, and Cincinnati is not coming in with really any momentum. But I don't think they haven't looked good, but they haven't looked awful. I think in some of their in some moments during their losses, and as you said, Roman too, they on paper they're a better team. They just have to go out there and prove it. But Denver does have that nice home field advantage, so that might come into play also. Okay, now we got Atlanta, San Francisco. Atlanta somehow is also in the playoff picture. I mean, if they win this game, they're very much could make the wild card team, which is just insane because they're not a good football team. But San Francisco's coming in with a bunch of momentum. George Kittle's finally woken up and remembered how to play football these last couple of weeks. He's been amazing. So I again have a clear cut favorite, but Roman, who do you like the most in this matchup?
Yeah, Kittle has gone absolutely nuclear these past 2 weeks. I think you had like what 40 plus points in PPR. So that's definitely insane. And even without Debo, oh, they did have Debo last week. They
Yeah.
had Debo, but Ayuk had the game winning touchdown in overtime. So that's good for him to get his season on track a little bit. Started off really slow. I think Debo is going to be much more healthy, so I think he'll probably step up as we expect him to. And Atlanta, I think, like you mentioned, Drew, they are in the hunt. They could theoretically make a run with Cordell Patterson and getting Pitts more involved, and hopefully Ridley comes back anytime soon. There's really been no updates about him, but I'm gonna go with San Francisco because I think they also have a shot at the playoffs, and I think their defense can step up as well.
I think Atlanta sucks. They're a fraud. Even playoff contender, they're bottom 7, 8 team in the league, and San Fran's going to win this game easily at home. They've been playing good ball lately, and they're going to keep it rolling here. I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add either. San Francisco is a better team. Atlanta sucks. If they win this game, though, I'm going to be. I mean, I like the 7-team playoff format. I think it adds a lot more juice to the season. But if Atlanta makes the playoffs, what are we doing here? Because they're not a good football team, and they haven't they've been banged up. Obviously, Calvin Ridley hasn't been playing in a while, so it's if they make the playoffs, like what is happening? But San Francisco's been looking really good recently, which has been great to see. Jimmy G's also been playing awesome. Also, okay, now we got Seattle, Los Angeles. Who's starting us off? Chris, you're starting us off here with Seattle, Los Angeles. Rams were not playing great. They got a huge win last week against your Cardinals. Seahawks, they're probably not making the playoffs. So again, clear-cut favorite in my opinion, but who do you like the most in this game?
I think Seattle's been playing a little better as of late, but that doesn't really matter. I think the Rams are the most talented team. They're fighting through a little bit of a COVID outbreak right now, but as long as Matthew Stafford's out there, um, and Aaron Donald, and maybe they'll have Jalen Ramsey back. Actually, I think they will have Jalen Ramsey back this week. As long as those guys are out there, I expect the Rams to win this game pretty easily at home. Uh, and actually, both LA teams are home this week. I just realized that looking up at the Chargers as well. I think that's interesting. You're not going to see that very often, but when one of them has a Thursday night, I guess that's one of the opportunities for them to for their workers to put in some overtime, I guess. But Roman, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, Seattle, they've won 2 in a row. They haven't been playing awful. And for the Rams, like you mentioned, they probably should have Jalen Ramsey back. They'll also have Tyler Higbee back, which is good because they didn't really have any production at the tight end position last week. I think they're coming off a huge win, probably their biggest win of the season, versus the team that was formerly of the first seed overall in the NFC, the Cardinals. The division hopes are still intact. I think they can definitely pull it out here. I'm ride or die with the Rams, obviously. I'm going to pick them in this game. I think Stafford, similarly to the first time these two teams matched up, I think he'll have another good game as well. And so same with Russ, because I think Russ, I think he normally steps up in some of these odd primetime games, and I think he'll do all right too.
Roman, just really quick, have you picked against the Rams yet this
You
season?
know,
I don't believe so.
I don't remember if I have or not, but that would be it wouldn't be shocking if I didn't, but I hopefully I did at one point, but I don't know.
I don't think you have, man. That's
That's rough.
hey, man. You took your Lions homerage and put it on the Rams.
Yeah,
That's
if
all
I
I'm
can't
gonna
pick
say.
if I can't pick the Lions to win every game, I might as well pick the Rams to win.
It's gonna be a bad bandwagon to hop on though when they lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Yep, I
To the
couldn't agree
Dallas
more.
Cowboys. But yeah, I have not much to add. I think of all the games with a clear-cut favorite this week, I think this is the one that's got the most likelihood to be an upset because, like you guys said, Russell Wilson always kind of shows up during prime time sometimes, but he hasn't really too much this year. So maybe he's due. Maybe the Rams will just walk right over them. Who knows? But I'm going with the Rams also. Now we got Saints, Buccaneers. The Saints, I mean, they are probably going to lose this game, but they really need this game if they want to keep their slim playoff hopes alive. But it's probably not going to happen because Tampa Bay is just rolling right now. I like them a lot. They had a big win last week. They also need this game if they want to try and get the 1 seed away from Green Bay. So I'm going with the Buccaneers pretty handedly, I think. But do you guys have anything you want to add to this matchup?
No, not really. Tampa Bay is good. New Orleans is eh, and they're gonna lose in this matchup because Tampa Bay is just the better team. I am looking forward to watching this one. See how Taysom plays against this good pass rush. You know, he's not a very good passer whatsoever, but he has looked really good on the ground as usual. He's a very talented runner. So I'm just curious to see what that element. I think that's a good test for Tampa Bay. I would say their defense. A really mobile quarterback. Kind of see how they handle that for playoff sake.
Yeah, it was at this point last season where New Orleans absolutely blew out Tampa on a primetime game, and then Tampa kind of ran the table, and that's kind of what sparked their Super Bowl run. correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not really sure if actually this is their second meeting of the season. I think they played earlier in the year. And obviously they don't have Drew
New
Brees
Orleans
like
won, I believe, didn't they? They won that matchup. I'm almost positive they
I
did.
don't recall. Maybe one of you can look
I
that
can
up.
look it
But
up.
yeah, I'm taking Tampa in this game. I think Taysom, he had a good game last week. It was the Jets though. This Saints team is not what the Bucks faced last season, so I think they're much more susceptible to lose to Tampa. And I think Tampa is also just on a tear right now. I think they're also the favorites of the NFC as well. So I think they can definitely run the table. I don't think many people have been talking about them in terms of Super Bowl contenders, because I think you talk about the Cardinals, the Packers, the Rams were also in that conversation a little bit, but I think Tampa has not been getting that love a little bit. I think they need to be talked about just a little bit more, because I think when the playoff time comes, they'll absolutely be there in the NFC Championship for sure. So I think we have to expect them to run the table again and make the Super Bowl. So I think they will.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Tampa Bay did lose that first matchup, by the way. That was the game Jameis Winston got injured, and Trevor Siemian, who is better than Tom Brady, was able to lead them to a victory.
Yes, I recall that game now. Yeah, I think we might see, realistically, honestly, a rematch of the last year's NFC Championship game between the Packers and the Buccaneers. But I guess the Cardinals and Rams are also pretty good too, and even the Cowboys. It's a fun NFL season, guys. There's so many good teams. All
Mm-hmm.
right, now we've got the final game between the Vikings and the Bears. The Vikings are just it's just like, what are we doing? You know, it's like they lose to the Lions and win a big primetime game against the Steelers. They're right there in the playoff picture. Very, very well could make it. The Bears are the worst. I think the second worst team in the NFC outside of the Lions. I would say either them or the Giants. So for me, there's a very easy winner. Even though the Vikings just recently lost to the Lions a couple weeks ago, but they did beat Pittsburgh, so I think they're going to be able to win this primetime game. This is a crappy Monday Night Football game, maybe the worst that we've had this season. I don't know why the Vikings are getting so many primetime slots, but Chris, I know you have some hot takes about the Vikings, so I'm just going to hand it over to you here. Who do you like? What do you want to talk about? Here you go. The floor is yours.
Well, I'll start off by saying that Minnesota's going to win this game, but I don't really care about that. It's whatever. It's really not even a hot take, to be honest, at this point. I just think that Mike Zimmer might be the worst coach in the NFL. This guy sucks. His in-game management is just absolutely piss poor every game. They can beat any team because they have the talent on their roster, but they can also lose to any team. And I think, I think people are starting to see this, but Kirk Cousins absolutely does not deserve very much criticism, in my opinion. I think he's been phenomenal this season. I think he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. If they win a few of those games, he's in the MVP conversation. But when they have such an awful coach in Mike Zimmer who wants to establish the freaking run every single play, I know it worked last week against Pittsburgh, but I hate watching this team run it on first and second down only to throw it short of the sticks on third down and then put the ball away instead of giving Kirk Cousins a chance to cook, especially when Dalvin Cook was out. I don't understand that. I don't understand Mike Zimmer. This dude absolutely needs to be fired at the end of the season. I think he's somehow the worst coach in this game. Even though Matt Nagy sucks as well, he doesn't have as much talent to work with. If Nagy had the Minnesota's team to work with, I think he'd be a little bit better. And he still sucks too. They both, honestly, this could be the firing coach bowl right here. Whoever loses this game could be gone. And honestly, I hope it's Minnesota because Mike Zimmer blows. I absolutely hate him. I absolutely despise him. I can't say enough negative things about this dude. I think he's such a fraud. I don't know how he still has a job. I don't have anything else to say, man. This guy sucks. There's not really much substance to this rant, to be honest. There's not a lot of. It's not based on a lot of facts. It's just based on the fact that this dude sucks. I hate looking at his stupid face on the sideline, and watching him choke. I was hoping to dear God they were going to lose that game against Pittsburgh. And after dominating the first time, I was like, how are they going to lose this game? That was literally my immediate thought. I was like, how are they going to blow this? And they almost did. They were one Pat Muth's loose touchdown from blowing that game, and that would have just made me so happy because I hate Mike Zimmer and the dude sucks. And I hope he has a good retirement after this season because he's not going to get hired by anybody else. This dude is a fraudulent coach.
Yeah, I know you've been saving that rant for a couple weeks now, so I'm glad you're able to get that out. I hope you feel a lot better after that.
I
But
feel great, man.
in this game, I'm taking Minnesota as well. I think they have, despite the bad coaching and aptitudes, I think on both sides of the ball, I think Minnesota just has the better roster, and I think Chicago they had the Packers on their heels a little bit last week, but they obviously couldn't finish the game. Jakeem Grant had a good couple returns, one of them for a touchdown last week. So I think Chicago, if they can bank on their special teams again and at least getting the ball to David Montgomery more. Mooney didn't have that good of a game, and neither did A-Rob. So Chicago can do some things a lot better, but Minnesota, I don't pick them that much, and when I do, they lose. So this could be another one of those times. But
Oh, they'll lose this. Don't
I'll
worry.
pick. Yeah, I mean, I see that Drew agrees with us as well.
Yeah, I don't hate the Bears in this game, honestly, because the Vikings are just, as Chris just eloquently outlined, they're not a great team. They're not well coached, but they are very talented. So I feel like they're going to win this. But the Bears, I mean, I think Mooney could have a huge game. The Vikings, I think, are the worst defense in terms of like allowing points to fantasy wide receivers. I'm pretty sure. I know at least I've been
They're
seeing
up
that in
there.
my lineups this week. So I think Mooney could have a big game. I think Monty could have a big game. I think Fields could have a big game. I mean, the Bears, if I hadn't gone against you guys in so many games before this, I think I would have went with the Bears, and I just don't trust either of these teams well enough to go with Chicago. So I'd rather just have this be a wash for us rather than risk potentially losing a game because I went with the Bears instead. But I do think the Bears aren't a good team, but they matchup wise, there's some things here that I do like that are in their favor against Minnesota. But I think that's it for the pick'em. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before we get into the fantasy picks? Okay,
No.
so Roman, you can start us off. Who do you have as your first fantasy guy?
Yeah, so we're gonna head to Arizona, Detroit, and we're gonna go on Arizona side of the ball. Obviously, D Hop is out. I think Rondale Moore is gonna have a good game this week. Obviously, it's him, Christian Kirk. Those were the only two wide receivers that you can really trust in that offense. However, Rondale Moore getting some work, also in the backfield as well. He's had a few rushes in the past few games, so I think as a runner, as a receiver, I think he can do a lot of good things. And even if James Conner is out, that's also in his favor too. So I think Rondell Moore is a great start this week.
I'm gonna jump into mine right away because I think I you could see my face maybe for a second there because I was pissed you took my guy and you didn't even mention him, man. I am stunned. It's AJ Green. I
Oh,
think
jeez.
this is the wide receiver to own in Arizona now with Hopkins out. I mean, the dude just had 100 yards last season. He's honestly been pretty good this year. He's a top 45 wide receiver on the year, and I think without Hopkins, he's the guy to own, man. He's on the perimeter. Kyler targets him down the field a lot. He's honestly been good this season. I don't get the eye rule I got from Roman there. I mean, if you look at it, Rondo Moore really hasn't been that great in my opinion. He's been fine. I mean, they throw the ball to him really short a lot. Maybe with James Conner out, he could get some more of those short targets. But I think that's just more of the reason why you could see AJ Green have a nice game here against this really crappy Detroit secondary. I think he's the guy to own here in Arizona for the rest of the season. So that's my first fantasy pick. I honestly he was a backup, but when you said Rondell Moore and Christian Kirk and not him, I was like, all right, we're gonna talk about AJ Green.
Fair enough.
Okay, so now I get to give some takes on the Arizona receivers, I guess, because I had none of those guys. I think they're somewhat like risky plays. I think whenever you put a guy in who's primarily a backup, and then you put him into your lineup because of an injury or some other circumstance, it's always a bit of a risk. But I do like what both you guys mentioned, how the previous stats and everything like that, the way they were playing, even when Hopkins was out there, does kind of support that they will be successful this week. I am scared of AJ Green because of what I did last season when I drafted him as my wide receiver too, and he was awful. So I am worried about him. But I think taking my bias out of the picture, I think he is a very, very solid pick overall. And yeah, I can get into my first guy too, unless you guys have anything else to add. So I was trying not to give this away because I was talking about this guy a lot when we just talked about the last game, and I knew all the stats offhand, and I did not want to give it away too much, but it's Darnell Mooney. I'm throwing him in. I do know for a fact, I can say this now, that Minnesota is the worst team against fantasy wide receivers in fantasy. So the only reason I knew that was because I wanted to pick Darnell Mooney. I am starting him as my wide receiver too in my playoff matchup this week because I think he's going to have a really big game. He's had some tough matchups recently, which is why his stats were a little bit down, but he gets the targets. Him and Fields have a nice connection. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, and I think Mooney's going to be very, very good. I think he's clearly the wide receiver one there now. I think he's definitely supplanted Allen Robinson, who's just been awful this year. But any thoughts on Mooney before I get to my next one?
Yeah, I mean Mooney's a guy that I really like as well. He'll probably have a solid week, but I mean it's tough picking the wide receiver 2 on the team when you have Jakeem Grant out there being their a clear alpha number 1 receiver. Now, in all seriousness, that guy is the fastest human being I have ever seen in my life. My God, he had some explosive plays on Sunday night. But yeah, Mooney, it should be back more. There's not going to be as many fluke plays. There was a couple of those that I think that's why Mooney didn't have a good game. But I think against this absolutely putrid Minnesota team where Mike Zimmer is probably going to have his head up his ass the entire game, I'd expect Mooney to have some wide open downfield shots, and Zimmer probably will forget who he even is and stuff, and that kind of thing. He's probably gonna call some stupid timeouts and probably be an idiot. So I'm assuming Mooney will probably just have an absolute field day out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think Mooney's the wide receiver to own in that team. I think you can definitely confirm. I'm confirming it that Allen Robinson will not be on that team next year. He'll find somewhere else to play, and Mooney will be the guy there. So I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, I think I wish I had Mooney in Dynasty. In all honesty, that's a lot of dynasties. I wish I had him in Dynasty. In all honesty, that's a lot of words to say. Because I think he's going to be really good. And I think he's been good this year, but I think he's going to be even better down the line, especially when A-Rob gets out of there. Him and Fields get a better connection. They get a better coach. So yeah, I really like Mooney, not just for this week, but for this week and beyond. And now my next pick, it's pretty basic. It's pretty just run of the mill. So I apologize in advance, but this is a guy that we have not really talked about all year. And when we have talked about him, it's because he's been hurt or he's been underperforming and he's been sucked. But these last 2 weeks, man, George Kittle has been awesome. He's really, really been good on the 2 teams I have him on. One of those teams I think I'm the 3 seed in that, so he's really helped me kind of solidify that. And I'm looking forward to using him this week. He does have a bit, I believe it's a knee thing, just semi-concerning. But they're playing Atlanta. Just the targets he's been getting, he's been finding the end zone. He's just been a monster. And I know it's pretty basic because Kittle's widely been regarded as one of the best tight ends in the league for good reason in the last few years. But I think with how this year started, I think he was irrelevant. He was non-existent. You were lucky if you got like 7 or 8 points out of him. And then he was also off the field for a ton also. So the fact that he's been the clear cut, probably the second best tight end in the league behind Travis Kelce, maybe even the best tight end in the league these last couple of weeks, I feel deserves to be mentioned. I think he gets another big, nice matchup here against Atlanta. So I know it's pretty basic, but I was wearing the jersey. We haven't really talked about him a lot. He's one of my favorite players, so I wanted to make sure I gave him a shout out here in the fantasy picks.
Yeah, you ain't gonna get a non-recommendation for me to bench George Kittle here coming off a 235-point games. This dude might have the juiciest schedule of any, or this whole the San Fran team in general. They're gonna definitely make the playoffs because their schedule down the stretch is beautiful. They have some absolute cupcake matchups coming up. So Kittle absolutely might be a league winner, and that is unfortunate because I do not have him in any leagues. I traded him at the beginning of the season actually for Travis Kelce in one league where I have the bye, and I'm kind of regretting it, to be honest. As of right now, I think Kittle is the guy to own if you have a tight end. I'll get into my next pick here before Roman goes and caps us off, and it's a shot of confidence for my boy who we've talked about a little bit throughout the episode. We've talked about this team a lot because of the controversy surrounding them. It's James MF and Robinson. I'm giving the shot of confidence. This man, he's been awful the last 2 weeks. I think he's had, 2 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks in total. I think he's going to eat against this Houston defense that just allowed Rashad Penny, of all people, to be relevant. And the dude had 138 and 2 touchdowns against him, caught some passes as well. May have even been the RB1 on the week. I'm not 100% sure. No, I think Dalvin was the RB2 on the week. I think that is true. So Robinson, this is a dude that needs to get it going here. I think Jacksonville, like I said, I think they're going to win this game. So I'm going to go with the RB1 on the team. He's been in and out of the lineup. I think Bevel knows how to run an NFL team a little bit better than Urban Meyer, kicking his
It's not saying much.
Out of all ironic things. He's kicking his kicker out there. He does no idea who's on the field. He probably doesn't even know where he is. Him and Mike Zimmer meet up every week for coffee to discuss how they're going to ruin their teams. But yeah, James Robinson, I think, is a great play this week, and I think you shouldn't be scared off the last couple weeks. Play him as a high-end number 2 running back.
Yeah, for sure. I think just one reason that people were weary about him was just because whenever he fumbled and made one mistake, he would get benched for the entire game. So at least you can have a shot of confidence that that likely won't happen this time around. Obviously, once he's healthy, he'll be good to go, fully instilled in your lineups. And obviously, this week is a pretty good matchup for Jacksonville as well. So I like that pick a lot.
Yeah, not much to add. James Robinson should have a big. Him of all people, I think, is ready to be like, screw you, Urban Meyer. So I think he could have a monster week here against a brutal Houston team. And then we kind of talked about that earlier too when we talked about that matchup. But Roman, cap us off here.
Yeah, I want to rattle off a few guys too because I think they're also worth mentioning. Chris, I totally forgot about Penny until you mentioned him. I think he actually could have a good game this week. Obviously, James Conner was able to dominate against the Rams defense last week, so maybe Penny can do replicate what he did last week. I think he came out of nowhere, had a career best game, so I think he can probably do it. Maybe do it again. However, don't start him if you don't have to. Obviously, it's the playoffs, so you want to be smart about it. So I have three other guys I want to quickly mention. One, Marvin Jones, just because of the shift in coaching. I think maybe Devil knows how to use Marvin Jones a little bit more. Hopefully, give him the ball a little bit more than he's had been, because I think he was a good signing in the offseason, but they haven't been really using him a whole lot like he was in Detroit. So I think he can get some work in this matchup. Also, Michael Carter designated from the IR with an ankle injury. I'm not totally positive if he's going to play this week. I think Salah said he would, but they still have to activate him off to get him on the active roster. So just monitor that situation, because if he does play, definitely start him against Miami. And then the last guy, kind of the main guy I want to talk about, Rob Gronkowski, tight end for the Buccaneers. I guess he's been on a tear the last few weeks. He's had either 8 or 9 targets in the last 4 games. 2 weeks ago, had double touchdowns. So if he gets a touchdown, you're good, but it's more so icing on the cake for him also, and just in terms of PPR. But I think in Stadium, he's just as good too. Definitely play him. He's been a tear in the tight end room where there's more inconsistencies. Obviously, there's besides the top couple of tight ends, there's not much after that. But I think Rob Gronkowski is becoming one tight end that you can assert in your lineup without any worries. So I like him in this matchup too, as much as the other guys I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, Gronk's a great play. I definitely agree with all your picks there. Just a little bit of a news update, and I'll let Drew talk about it to end. The Bears are not going to have, it doesn't look like they're going to have their offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, or their special teams coordinator this upcoming Monday against the
To
Minnesota
COVID.
Vikings. Yeah, all three guys are out, so it's going to be the full Coach Nagy show this week.
Oh yeah.
And hey, honestly, so basically Nagy's just gonna he's basically down to Mike Zimmer's level. That's what we see with all these assistants down. He's basically on that level. So coaching, I would say pretty even now. But Drew, finish it off for us, man.
Well, his coordinators have been holding him back these last few years. So now we get the full Nagy experience. So
That's what I want.
Yeah, now we're gonna be good. But Roman, I don't really have too much to add. All three of your picks there, I think had some good reasons to go with him, especially Gronk. I think he's going to continue to be a beast. Ever since he's very similar to Kittle. He's even been, I think, better than Kittle for most of the year because he was good and then he got hurt and now he's come back and he's been just as good. So I like all those picks. I don't have too much to add. Do you guys have anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Good luck this week to everyone in the playoffs. Hopefully you win. I need to win as well. I'm sure everyone does too. So good luck.
Fire Mike Zimmer. All
yeah.
Right.
It's one of the best times of the year. We got a really, really great NFL playoff race in both conferences and also fantasy playoffs. So, thank you for watching this episode. And once again, we are the Zone Defense Podcast. We do these episodes of the NFL every single week, along with fantasy analysis and breaking news episodes as needed. So make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod. And search us on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any of that awesome content. Also, smash that like button and drop a comment down below. Let us know what you think the craziest team that's still in the playoff picture is. I know for me, it's definitely the Falcons, and even the football team. It's pretty wild that they're still in the contention. Also, leave a comment about how your fantasy playoffs are going, how you think about our fantasy picks, what do you think about our NFL picks, all that stuff. We love reading your comments and trying to respond to them as quickly as we can. But once again, thank you for listening to this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.